And good morning. Welcome to Lehigh Valley International Airport. My name is Colin Rickemont. I'm the Director of Public and Government Relations for the Lehigh-Northampton Airport Authority. Thank you for joining us today for Let's Talk About Queen City Airport. We did a session like this about Braden Air Park about 2 months ago, and it went very, very well. It was an opportunity for the LNAA to discuss projects, initiatives, and just go over operations at the general aviation airports, and a way to share the information directly with the GA community and interact as well. So this is an opportunity for you to ask some questions as well. You can use the chat function on the YouTube link that was sent to you, and if you're viewing it now, it's off to the right-hand side. Throughout the meeting, I'll be checking those questions and sharing them with the presenters that are here today, and providing as best an answer as possible. If there's something I have to follow up on, we'll also mention that as well. I'm about to turn the microphone, the session, everything over to our Executive Director, Tom Stout, who's also joined by Director of Planning and Programming, Ryan Meyer, and Director of Business Development, Darren Betters. This will be a 30-minute session, so from 11:30 to 12. And again, please don't hesitate if you have some questions as we talk about some of these issues and things that are going on around the airfield. Again, please do so. So thank you very much for joining us. A link will be sent out post-meeting to the LVGAA and other groups to share throughout the general aviation community. And we look forward to, again, sharing some good information here today. So with that, I will turn it over to the Executive Director of the Lehigh-Northampton Airport Authority, Tom Stout.
All right, thank you, Colin. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Really appreciate an opportunity to be with you today to talk about Queen City Airport and focus our conversation there. I think there's a lot of good information that you'll hear today, and certainly look forward to your questions and thoughts and being able to provide some responses there. I know this is a little bit unusual. Normally, this time of year, we're planning on maybe a get-together at Queen City for a holiday party. We're not wearing any masks or other face coverings. So again, apologize we can't be with all of you in person. Certainly hope you have a great holiday all the same. And we'll certainly look forward to doing something more traditional next year. But for right now, we certainly wanted to share some information. As we know, the pandemic is continuing. And I really want to thank all of the tenants at Queen City, our staff at Queen City right off the bat for keeping everyone safe. Continuing to keep the facilities operational. There's certainly potential, as the cases continue to rise, certainly potential for other impacts, as we know, when quarantines are involved, if people are traveling and other things. Know that we are doing our best. We're working to provide great service at Queen City, but certainly quarantines and other things may start to become a factor for us. And we appreciate your patience as we work through the pandemic alongside all of you. So again, thank you for being here. So I guess first up, we do have a number of slides, a very limited number of slides to kind of walk through, and just some updates, I think mostly on some capital projects and some different initiatives that we want to talk about. And to do that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Ryan Meyer, who's going to be able to walk through and take us through some of those. So with that, Ryan, I'll ask you to maybe walk us through some of the information here.
Sure. All right, thanks, Tom. Good morning, everybody. As mentioned, Ryan Meyer. I'll just go through some of our capital projects we just wanted to touch on. So we've talked about the Queen City Master Plan at some of our other business committee meetings, and we obviously had a workshop last year to get a lot of the tenant input and feedback. So a lot of that has been incorporated. I'll go into a little bit of detail here on the next slide, but just kind of as a basic overview, we did send the final report to the FAA. We did have a internal review meeting with the FAA on December 4th. Just had some minor comments to address. But basically the next step for the project is to upload the airport layout plan for airspace review, which is an FAA requirement that they just confirm that there's no navigational impacts. So while that's being done, we're basically just finalizing the report with the comments, and then we hold until we get some of that feedback to officially finalize and unveil the report. But just going through some of the specific details, and some of you may have seen some of this before, but just from an overall perspective of what we're looking at, is basically everything in green is phase 1. So the 0 to 5, 5 years. Phase 2 is 6 to 10. Phase 3 is 11 to 20. And those aren't necessarily hard set dates of, within 5 years we're doing all these things. It's really just something we use as a metric to prioritize which projects we should be focusing on first, which ones we can leverage and get funding for, and obviously give the tenants and the stakeholders really a first-class facility. So just hitting some of the highlights in terms of phase 1, obstruction removal we'll talk more about in a minute, but we've mentioned a lot of that here recently. Runway 1533 rehabilitation design that we're going to be looking at. A snow removal equipment building that we've identified a need for, which again is generally in this location adjacent to the bulk hangars. A new consolidated fuel farm, which we've identified in this area here. Taxiway Alpha rehabilitation, but with that as well, as you'll see down here, so Taxiway Alpha currently does not meet the separation standard between runway 725 and the center line of Taxiway Alpha. It's actually a 40-foot discrepancy. So prior to rehabilitating the pavement, the FAA would require us to do a feasibility study to see what the cost would be to realign it, what the cost would be to realign it, and what would need to be done prior to rehabilitating that pavement or relocating it. So that's something that we'll have to look at as we continue on. And again, we'll talk more about a little bit later too, is some of the proposed hangar development that we've been looking at. Real quick, some of the other phase 2 components in the blue is some additional transient parking, some VIP, I guess we're calling them ramp markings. That was one of the big takeaways from our workshop of just having more of the transient, pick up and drop off. Again, we have identified somewhat a new / expanded terminal area or terminal building, which again, we did assume, there's some space that we could have for restaurants and other kinds of things once we get to that phase. And then again, kind of the further out years, once everything has really been identified, you have some potential, T-hangar and hangar development, which impacts some existing lease areas, and then, quite a large area for, again, transient parking and expansion. So a lot of information, but again, that's something we're just kind of coordinating with the FAA and finalizing some of those specific details. And once we get everything in, it'll be up on our website, and we'll get the notifications out with how that's progressing. So some quick updates on the obstruction removal. Phase 1 was completed this past fall, removing the about 2.6 acres of trees off of the 15 end. So obviously right now is not the time for grass to grow, so come the spring, we'll just confirm everything was done accordingly, and that project can then be closed out. But the phase 1 obstructions have been ultimately removed. In terms of phase 2, you can see here is basically all of the hatched area in terms of off of the runway 15 end. The green was what we just talked about, was done for phase 1. Other than this area, there are some individual homeowners, so we're contacting them in terms of timing and what tree plantings we would have in some of those areas. But the general schedule is to begin that in April of 2021, obviously when weather improves for planting and seeding and so forth. This one also, just to note, was a 2020 AIP grant, which were 100% federally funded. So that obviously helps us out a lot by not having a 5% local match. Same with this one, 100% federally funded. The design to rehabilitate runway 1533. Again, as we mentioned on the master plan, as you can see with the pavement condition index is on the poor side, which, as you can see here, obviously, the pavement's beyond its useful life, so we're looking to make those repairs. Basically, the schedule is about a 12-month design cycle to coincide with the 2022 grant, because grants are actually due this coming May for 2021 grants. So this one will actually be a 2022 grant. So keep seeing some updates from this as we move forward, but it's not going to start construction next year. It'll be the following year. And just some quick potential upcoming projects. We've talked about this before. The 2020 PennDot capital budget, just as a quick recap, we had applied for funding for both Queen City and Braden for the entire project cost of these 4-unit hangars here on the right-hand side. We weren't awarded the grant, and in talking with the state, the cost was just too high for what we were looking to do. So what they mentioned was splitting out the civil from the building costs, which is what we did. They actually had a recent window that opened that closed on December 4th. So we did submit a $2.2 million grant for the foundations for those 4 single-unit hangars. It's a 50-50 split, so LNAA shares about $1.1 million. We should hear something back in the spring of next year is typically their time frame. Some more to come on that. And then, as you'll see, this is kind of the future grant project area. This one was really hit first because of the existing taxi lane and pavement that was put in place to really take advantage of some of those civil elements that were already put in. So that's really all I had in terms of some of the project updates. I don't know, Colin, if there were any questions that came in or.
There were no questions at this point.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
Sure.
So
I guess, Darren, you have a couple of updates for us as well?
yeah, we just wanted to talk briefly about just some of the businesses and things down at Queen City. Obviously, we've been about probably a little over a year now with our new maintenance operator, new flight school down there. So Fly Advance on the maintenance side, things are going well. Working with them, and their business seems to be going pretty well. Hopefully, you folks have found them to be helpful down there and are patronizing that business. And then the flight school continues on from what it was back with the Gateway days to now the Fly Gateway Academy days. Things are going well there. They did have a little bit of a slowdown with the pandemic, but I think now they're operating pretty normally, although we have had a few, again, as Tom mentioned earlier, some of the concerns with COVID quarantines and things I know have definitely slowed their business from time to time. We had a couple of folks that had to quarantine down there for that. So, but all in all, both are going really well. Also excited that we now have our first jet aircraft charter operator, Part 135 charter operator, with Ted Rosenberger and Vertiview. So he's often flying with the Citation down there now as well. So that seems to be going really well for him between that and the King Air. So outside of that, I think the couple other things we have, the medevac has been great for us. We were able to do a contract with them while the construction is going on over at Lehigh Valley Hospital. So fueling those guys pretty frequently, and we worked a contract with them, and also worked out some training with them so they're able to actually fuel themselves overnight whenever we're unattended. So that's been good for us from a financial standpoint, and obviously from being able to assist them with that operation as well. I think that, like I said, overall things have been going pretty smoothly down there. We are definitely trying to stay on top of the COVID situation. You've probably seen some of the signage and things. We actually have a temperature scanner in there now, which from what I understand is being used pretty often by folks. So we're glad to see that people are staying aware of how they're doing. And, again, we are constantly watching that. We have had some folks have to quarantine and things. So, we will adjust hours if needed. But, we're doing our best to maintain the service levels, keep everybody safe, and keep everybody working. So
Great. And Darren, I guess just for folks' reference, we did earlier this year, the board did approve continuing our agreement with an extension for World Fuel. Is that correct? So
yeah, that is correct, Tom. So yeah, we have extended our contract with World Fuel for an additional 5 years. They've been a very good contract with them up to this point. We did make a couple of changes just on how we buy fuel from them, which has also been helpful. It kind of helps us out on the cash flow side and makes it a little bit easier on that way. So basically, they now own our inventory and we buy it as needed, or they actually pass it through straight to the customer. So that's been helpful, and definitely continuing that relationship, and they whatever kind of comes from that as we go.
Great. So no big changes on the horizon there, I think is the message. So
yeah,
great.
for sure. I mean, everything's staying the same. Everybody, I know we've gotten most folks down there now have the Phillips 66 card, and that's been good. So we're able to offer a discount on fuel as long as you have that card, and that won't be changing. Also, hopefully be coming out and being able to offer the ability to start paying hangar rents on one of those cards as well. So we're working on something like with that with World Fuel too. So stay tuned on that.
Great, great. So some added flexibility in terms of payment as well. Okay, great. So I guess at this point, Colin, I'll check in with you and see if there's questions or any thoughts from the group online at this point.
Yeah, Tom, nothing has been shared. Again, I encourage you on the chat side to, if you have any questions, I know we've given you a lot of information today, and you can also go back and look at it. We will send out the link. Will be available on our YouTube channel. But no questions at this point. A lot of excitement certainly around Queen City and what's been going on down at the airport, even through such tough times. But I also, Tom, wanted to mention some of the new additions that we have for communications purposes. One of them being that Queen City has now its own website, flyxll.com, and you can go there. Again, focus solely on Queen City Airport. Queen City Airport is, got the About Us, our fuel, our services, some of our COVID-19. There's also discussions, if you look on the bottom right-hand top side, the GA Today newsletter. Another opportunity for you to get information. It is distributed to all tenants and stakeholders. Focus solely on GA. We've been putting out several issues so far and trying to keep everybody up to date on the great information and advancements and initiatives around GA. So look for the next edition of GA Today in January. So we'll be able to share updates on maybe even some of the things we discussed here today. There's also, Tom, if you want to go back to the original GA page,
Sure.
There is a way here. If you go to GA, up in the right-hand corner of our Fly AV website, it actually takes you to a page here where it breaks down all of Hangar 7, Braden Air Park, Queen City Airport, and the brand new Hangar 11, which again is a project we're very, very proud of. And additionally, the Contact Us page, which is also an opportunity for people to share information or inquiries or questions with the airport authority in regards to anything that may be going on, maybe an idea, maybe an issue that needs to be addressed immediately. But please don't hesitate to contact us. In any way, shape, or form. Please utilize these websites. We also have Facebook for Queen City and Facebook for Braden Air Park as well. I do have one here from Megan Everett regarding again, something, Tom, that you brought up to the regarding the COVID-19 situation. So what I'll do, Tom, is I'll actually turn this over to you as well in regards to how the information was shared regarding some of the staffing changes in which we distributed an email to our board to alert them, as well as, I believe, Darren, to the tenants as well at Braden Air Park. So could you discuss a little bit about how we share the information in regards to any type of COVID-19 staffing changes, or Darren
Sure.
can do the same thing?
Sure, and I'll kick off here, Darren. You can certainly elaborate a little bit, but I think everybody understands, obviously, due to privacy laws, we can't get into a lot of specific information depending on the individual, and certainly that's left up to contact tracing if that's required to inform folks if there's a potential exposure. I think it's important to remember that, again, when we run into a challenge with a quarantine, it may not be because of a positive test. It could be because of travel or some other requirement that a person has to quarantine, and it may not actually be related to a positive case. So I think that's always good to be aware of as we kind of look at these situations continuing to evolve. We know that the case count, as I mentioned earlier, is growing. Specifically as well in the Lehigh Valley. We're tracking that information and certainly doing everything we can, as Darren pointed out earlier, to keep people safe. To the extent that we start to see impacts and that we do have effects on staffing, we've seen that at times here in a number of departments at ABE, and again at Queen City and Braden. We've worked really hard to maintain service levels in spite of having some of those challenges. But It's certainly important for us to get information out to let people know if there are impacts, and I think, Darren, we've worked to do that in a couple of cases already this year.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, it is a very fluid situation. These things kind of happen quickly. We're trying to evaluate them on pretty much on a daily basis to make changes to the schedule and things as necessary. But that's exactly, we did communicate this out to the tenants. Actually, yesterday would have been the second time we had to communicate to the Braden tenants that we were going to have the airfield unattended for a couple of days unexpectedly because of just staffing concerns and folks that have to quarantine right now. But that's exactly it. We try to get out as quickly as we can. Definitely want to make sure our board stays informed and make sure the tenants stay informed. And certainly if anybody has questions about any of that, that in the email, definitely references, sending those back to me and happy to answer. And we did get a couple of, actually positive responses from the emails we sent out from folks. Obviously everybody understands kind of what we're going through. I think a lot of other businesses are going through it as well. So we're
Sure.
Continue to monitor that and change as we have to.
No, thanks, Darren. Appreciate it.
Additionally, Tom, there was a NOTAM that was also issued for Braden Air Park, and it was shared on Facebook earlier this morning regarding that. So the information was put out there. And again, from that perspective, I think to Darren's point is it's certainly a fluid situation where in the latter part of an afternoon it can come rather quickly. We get the information out as quickly, and certainly the tenants immediately affected as possible. We do have another question, and this actually could go to Darren, just to have you up on camera. Are the T hangars fully occupied? If so, is there, and how long is the waiting list in regards to the T hangars?
T hangars are fully occupied. I can't honestly tell you exactly how long the waiting list is. I don't know off the top of my head. We can certainly get that information back to folks. I will say we have a number of folks kind of standing on that waiting list that most times, we do run through the list. A lot of them do pass when the time comes. They keep their name on there for future, for the when the opportunity does come up for them to actually have an aircraft to put in there. But they are full. That varies from time to time. We'll have one open here and there, but they typically do not stay open very long. When we do have an open T hangar, we're able to fill it pretty quickly.
And I think one of the things that helps us is when we do go to the Bureau of Aviation and we talk about grants for hangars and future hangar products, having a waiting list is also a good feature, because we can remind folks at the Bureau that the hangars are full, and that's certainly something that we want to be able to do, is continue to build hangars and fill them at the airport. So I think that's the other takeaway on that one.
Yeah, and generally that's all three of our airports. Really, the T hangars we don't have T hangar space available pretty much anywhere. So,
Colin, anything else coming in on the line there for questions at this point?
As of now, no, there were no other questions that were submitted.
Okay, all right. So I think we kind of walked through the information. One of the things, if you kind of indulge me just a second here, I did want to just mention, as part of the grant we received, 100% funding we received for this rehab of runway 1533, and Ryan kind of talked about it. I did want to mention one of the reasons we were able to get the grant for this rehab. Obviously, the pavement condition you can see here is shown in red, is in poor shape. You can kind of see that from the photo as well, the alligator cracking there. But one of the things that's important, and that's why we appreciated your feedback as part of the master plan process, as we looked at the study and looking really at the wind analysis for the airport, there was the potential that 1533 would not be required at the airport, which would mean it would lose its eligibility for federal funding. And again, when you kind of look at the numbers here, the design cost of almost $350,000, construction cost the $3 million or so, certainly a heavy lift without grant funding. And what was really important, I think, and I want to thank Ryan and his team. They had submitted a letter, and they had requested that the FAA reconsider including this runway. I think spent a lot of time back and forth with the FAA on this and ensuring that it would be qualified for future funding purposes. And so that actually was successful. And in fact, the payoff is here in that we were able to go back, see that runway maintains itself in terms of being eligible in terms of the federal status for funding. And here we are receiving funding now to rehab this piece of pavement. So I think, again, in terms of how we know the airport is used and how we know that flight training and other things are occurring at Queen City, we wanted to ensure that this runway also continued to exist, and we were able to inject funding into it to rehabilitate the pavement. So thanks, Ryan, to your team for the hard work to get this back on the federally eligible list for keeping the runway, and great job on the grant to get that in place as well. So just wanted to point that out to the group. I thought that was a job well done. And Colin, I'll go back to you if there's...
Yeah, we do have one more quick one before we go, and that
Sure.
will go to Darren, and just a follow-up to operationally at Queen City in regards to staffing. How has COVID-19 affected that, and right now with some effects to other airports, Braden and so forth, what effects do you think possibly at Queen City, if any, right now?
So nothing currently. I mean, we actually have sort of combined those Braden and Queen City staffs to make sure that we can keep Queen City operational as much as possible right now. We do have, we have some of the quarantining going on from there as well. But we haven't had to adjust hours or anything at this point in time. But again, we try to, we're going to continue to stay a little flexible on that, watch what's going on, and make those adjustments as necessary. But our goal would be to maintain our normal hours if possible.
Great. And I think that's the final question, Tom, in regards to today's session.
Okay.
We've had some good positive response here from people that have attended. So thank you very much for attending. I hope you have some final words for everybody.
Yeah, I would say, kind of the way we started, certainly appreciate your continued support. Really excited about some great things we've got in the pipeline here. Ryan's kind of walked us through a lot of those, and even some grant submittals for getting some of those hangars moving. We heard about waiting lists and other things, so great to see all that happening. And at the same time, certainly on Darren's side, from a staffing perspective, and doing everything we can on the facilities end to keep all the tenants there safe. We appreciate everything you're doing to monitor yourself and making sure that we're doing our part right now to help keep everybody healthy. So we thank you for that. We're going to do our part as well, and continue to do everything we can to provide great service for you like we always do. Certainly if there's ever any concerns, Colin mentioned how you can contact us. And again, if there's an emergency or other situation, please don't use the web form. We'll certainly have you get a hold of the operations center or get a hold of the properties group to make sure you're getting your concerns addressed. But other than that, I certainly want to say happy holidays to everybody. Again, wish we could be doing this in person like we love to do, but a little bit different this year. We know together we'll get through it, but we want to say thank you and happy holidays. So with that, gents, anything to add?
No, just the same. Thanks for all the support down there. Thanks for we appreciate our customers there. And again, yeah, as Tom said, hopefully everybody has a great holiday. Definitely looking forward to a new year. Looking forward to 2021 and what that may bring for us all.
Yeah, same. Happy holidays. Thanks for the input of how we've gotten to where we are. And yeah, any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll get back to you.
Great. Okay, thanks, Colin. Appreciate all your help here today to make this all possible, and certainly this will be up, I believe, for people to take a look at. Okay, great. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great